Good morning and welcome to the Daily Cyber Briefing for Wednesday, the 4th of June. I'm Stephen Ridgway. Hewlett Packard Enterprise (HPE) has issued security patches for the StoreOnce bugs that have been allowing remote authentication bypass. StoreOnce is HPE's backup and dedupe solution. There's how many other 8 vulnerabilities that have recently been announced. One of which has got a CVSS score of 9.8. That particular one is 2025 37093, which is literally an authentication bypass vulnerability. Anyway, patches are available. If you are using HPE's StoreOnce solution, very much would recommend applying the patches and updates as soon as is possible, because as we've discussed a number of times on the briefing, and I'm sure you come across the concept elsewhere, being able to recover from issues is one of the most important steps in the incident response lifecycle. If systems such as these are compromised, that does put at risk your recovery. So, at one end of the scale, can you detect it, is extremely, probably, I would say, one of, if not the most important aspects of or step in the incident response life cycle. At the other end, are you able to recover from it? So, if you can detect it, contain it, and eradicate it, that's all well and good. But if you can't get your business stood back up again, you've failed. So apply these patches if you are using HP Enterprise StoreOnce. Now, every now and then, I come across an article that makes me think. They all make me think, but you know what I mean. It's like you sit there having a cup of coffee in the morning and think, oh, that's an interesting concept. Kind of hadn't paid much attention to that, although, and as is the case with many things, if it's bleeding obvious, there's probably something in there that we ought to be paying more attention to than we necessarily are at the moment. So, there has been a deliberate attack on a grocery shopping app in India. Okay, it's in India, and I appreciate a lot of people listening to this briefing are not in India, so the direct impact is perhaps a little less. However, the concepts are certainly worth letting these things float to the surface. I doubt that it's something that any of us have just completely ignored, but I don't think we're necessarily thinking through the consequences of this sort of attack. Now, the issue with this attack is it wasn't ransomware. There was no extortion. There was, as far as we can tell, not even any data exfiltration. However, somebody with a grudge against the app basically compromised and then deleted the GitHub repository for the code for the app, and all the AWS resources that were used in running the app. Now, the app itself, it's a grocery shopping app. You put in your requirements. It's kind of it's linked to chains of sort of the equivalent of what in the UK would be corner stores, smaller grocery stores, smaller shops. You put into the app whatever your requirements is. That then gets sent to a whole bunch of local shops. They compete for your business. If they win it, they then take payment and they arrange delivery. Usually the whole thing's turned around really quickly. It's quite a good model, actually. It works well. Certainly, clearly works very well in India, where it's based. But normally the whole process end to end, including delivery, takes about 20 minutes. So that's kind of cool. Well, could you imagine having, that is your business, okay? You are effectively a broker for shops to compete and then deliver their products. And then somebody not only knocks you offline, but isn't interested in providing any means. There's nothing beyond just take them out. So you don't need to worry about, from the attacker's perspective, how do you manage decryption keys? How do you deal with and negotiate for ransom payments and all the rest of it? It's like, no, this is really simple. This is just a case of, okay, the object of the exercise isn't to extort you. The object of the exercise is to make you go bankrupt through preventing you from trading. Extraordinary. It's a concept that I don't think many of us have got in the forefront of our minds when we're considering cyber defense. However, it is something perhaps that ought to be there. So, we think a lot about ransomware. Ransomware is not, however, the only destructive attack or compromise that can be thrown against an organisation. So if the objectives is simply to prevent you from trading or doing whatever it is that you're going to do, well, just deleting everything and then deleting your ability to rebuild it all is a pretty effective way of having significant impact. Now, bearing in mind that if we scale this up to the nation-state geopolitical stuff, the ability to cause disruption is highly prized amongst nation-state adversaries. We are aware that both the Chinese and Russians offensive cyber outfits who put a lot of effort into working out how to do things like disrupt power, water, transport, financial services. Well, here's another one. We've seen the company level impact of attacks on retail. So share price of Marks and Spencers and so on has had a hard time. They'll recover, but they've managed to work around it. Well, that's because the attack didn't fundamentally affect the. Well, it kind of did, but there's a lot of the business model which doesn't have to be dependent on being fully digitized, because in the end you are talking about products. So as long as you've got a method of tracking your stock in, tracking your stock out, and taking payments, making orders and so on and so forth, you can probably log it through for a while, kind of thing. However, if you simply just destroyed all of those systems, especially for the likes of the other end of the scale, in the sort of retail space, if you wanted to knock out Amazon, if you could knock out their servers, well, that's the entire business model gone, because they don't have anything physical. They have some warehouses from which they ship stuff, but nothing would be coming in, nothing would be going out. So very interesting. And certainly something I think that is worth bearing in mind. It appears to be somebody with a grudge, by the way, that has undertaken this activity. So I'm guessing disgruntled employee, disgruntled ex-employee with more access than they ought to have. Make sure your JML processes are robust. Okay, there is an article in GB Hackers also that caught my attention, that is talking about container-based attacks, and how to identify them through host-based log analysis. A good article. It's something that has been on my mind, been a concern of mine for a long time. I remember Eliza giving talks 5 years ago at B-Sides in, was it Budapest or Bucharest? I can't remember. 5 years ago about container security, or the lack of it. I mean, 5 years ago, I think most people were, in fact, actually, even the entire cloud world was still in the of the opinion that, well, of course it's secure, it's virtual. Well, just to be aware, for those that aren't, in a containerized world, every process runs on one kernel, or effectively runs, no matter how it's multi-threaded, but every process running in a container has a mapped process on the host underneath it. Okay, the only reason that you can't manipulate processes directly on the host from within a container is because of namespaces. So you may see this as process number 1 on inside the container. That maps to, I don't know, 10,000 on the host. So you have it's segregated in that way. You don't have the ability to break out, except for when you do, and that's the issue with this stuff. It's also, though, possible the other way around, to track what's going on inside a container by understanding which processes on the host are associated with which containers that are running on that host, which is what this is about. So, interesting article. If you run containerized environments, it is certainly worth a read. If you are looking to identify malicious activity which is generated from within a container in your environment, on a host within your environment, there certainly gives some good ideas about how to do that mapping. And how to understand what's actually running, and then to work out what of those things, what's going on and what the risks are to the underlying host, because the big risk with malicious activity within a container is that there will be a path by which it is possible to manipulate the underlying host. And there are lots. Containers are not secured out of the box. Anyway, interesting article, recommend a read. There's an awful lot going on at the moment. Meta, I bet you're not aware of this. Meta and Yandex have been using surreptitious measures to bypass privacy controls within browsers on Android devices. And the way that they've done this is by coding Android apps, their own Android apps, to listen for connections, network connections on a loopback, so effectively localhost, but a loopback address on the Android device on a known port. So effectively, the way that this defeats privacy settings within your browser is that you browse to a particular website. If that website uses I can't remember the name of the thing, Metapixel or Yandex Metrica scripts, which are, by the way, hidden on literally thousands of sites. They're very common. When you hit that site, the script on the site then instructs via the browser a connection to be made to localhost on a particular port. Through that connection, things like cookies are exfiltrated, and basically all sorts of information can then be exfiltrated, which bypasses privacy settings on the browser, and bypasses things like incognito mode, and makes it possible for a combination of the website being browsed with the information that is passed back to the app. It makes it possible for Meta and Yandex to track your browsing behavior in ways which were not intended, or you would not have thought were you'd actually agreed to. It's a little complicated about how it works, but it is quite interesting. So basically, we're talking about things like native Facebook or Instagram apps. I've been seeing doing this, or Yandex stuff as well. There is a step through in the article in the Register that explains how this stuff works. Why am I bringing it to your attention? Well, partly I'm bringing it to your attention because it relies on you running, let's say, the Facebook or Instagram app, and then allowing it to just become a background. So a background app. So you've opened it, you've done, you've had your morning coffee, you've had a little look at what's going on Instagram, you've picked up on the feeds and who's done what. And then you go back to your browser and carry on doing whatever it is that you're going to be doing. Well, the app, the Instagram or Facebook or whatever app, will then sit in the background. Now, it seems to me that I don't know what controls there are around this on Android, but it looks like Android allows background apps to receive incoming network requests. That is certainly not reliable in the Apple world, which is a bit irritating if you've got something like a VoIP app, which once it goes in the background on an Apple device stops receiving incoming calls. It's very annoying. There are ways to work around that, but it involves a little bit. You've got to do something to make that happen. Well, it looks like on Android it's possible for an app to sit in the background but still receive incoming network calls, certainly localhost network calls. So that one is very interesting, technically interesting. If you want to work around that, if you're worried about that from a personal perspective on your Android devices, don't leave apps running in the background. Would be a good start, I would suggest. Does look like at least now Meta apps Yandex apps have been caught out doing this. They have at least temporarily stopped doing it because I suspect also then that Google will ban them from the Play Store, because this is definitely not. It's not only not following the spirit of the rules around app behaviour. It's actually explicitly prohibited according to the App Store rules. All right, then, finally from me today, yet another article talking about smart car security, or the continuing total lack of it. I've got to be honest right now, shoot me for this if you want to, don't care. Only dumb people buy smart cars, frankly. They are so insecure. It's large, it goes fast, it has a lot of momentum, it will kill things if it hits them. You would not believe how pathetic security is in the auto industry at the moment. So despite 12 months of very publicly available information on how insecure systems are on the majority of modern cars, we still see vendors using passwords like 123456 or P ampersand SSW0RD as passwords. If you want to look up what passwords are used, there are some that are slightly better. Research discovered one called a password for a particular car system that's at in control 1976. It's okay, all right. How long is it going to take? And they'd also tend to be either static or passwords, or even worse, reused static passwords. There is in the article, which we will link to the link from the briefing article in hackread.com. There is actually a list of some of the common pathetic passwords that are used in the automotive industry, in your smart cars. So come on, guys, think about this. Do you really, are you really willing to spend tens of thousands of pounds on a device which has almost no security associated with it at all? It's just hopeless. Right, that's all from me for today. I hope you have a good Wednesday, and I'll speak to you all again tomorrow.